As we continue this process of sharing Premier Research laboratory products, we want to give you a real kick in the butt to let you guys know why Premier is so good. This is my good friend, and I will call him a great brother nowadays. We've gotten to know each other over the last 2 or 3 years, but this is Will Marsh, one of the international people of Premier Research and also heading up the East Coast. So, Will, thank you for taking the time, and hopefully we can spread the word here and educate folks why Premier really rocks, right? So, first of all, where'd you come from when you decided to join? I'll put it this way: where'd you come from, and why did you decide to work with Premier?
Well, I want to say first and foremost, thank you so much, Peter, for hosting me today, and everybody tuning into this webcast. You are part of something very special. Peter is should be and is on the way to being a world-renowned practitioner. If he's not already, I think there's probably some cult that is following him somewhere in Indonesia. So thank you all, part of Peter's family. But I
didn't even have to pay him for that. That was good.
No payment. Yeah, I'm here on my own accord, but. My story with Premier Research Labs, it's been a journey. And honestly, I'm so honored to be working for Premier Research Labs, and hopefully, as you kind of come to understand, what we're about, hopefully I can bring some more light to that on continued education through this forum and more, appearances here even. But, my journey, I actually have a background in clinical nutrition. I studied nutritional sciences at the University of Texas. I actually did oncology research from there. And I actually have been in the nutraceutical field, working for retail outlets for about 10 years total, and now into the wholesale market with Premier Research Labs and supporting practitioners like Peter himself currently. And so really my journey, I've seen the worst of the industry, and now I'm with the best of the industry. And so it's kind of come full circle to understanding what is wrong, what is right, and how as a consumer, which you are working through Premier Research Labs through Peter, as with his education and with his knowledge, you really need to understand what can go really, really wrong within the industry. And so, with that clinical background, with that nutraceutical background, doing the research modalities that I did at the University of Texas, and then going into a retail outlet, I came to understand what a consumer looks for, what is good in the industry, and what actually has clinical effectiveness. And so really the honor of being with Premier Research Labs is seeing all that we can do on the back end to make sure that you have the best product going forward. And so really my goal, there's a lot of different formulas within our line. We can target a lot of different ailments and support areas that a lot of people are needing. And Premier Research Labs, through our quality standards, we really want you to feel like you are able to address those concerns that you've possibly been dealing with for a lifetime, or been building up to for a lifetime. I think that's one of the key things people don't realize is, you go through life and you have this bad nutrition, bad lifestyle, and it just builds up. And by the time you're the age 60 and you've lost all your hair, you have these other core elements that, you're just not the same person that you used to be. And so it's bringing back that resonance, bringing back that full vitality. And I don't know if I actually answered the question yet, but I feel like
it's been a good education so far. But let's go into, so what is Premier looking for with their product?
Yeah. So when you look at Premier Research Labs and what we offer, there's a lot to what we offer. But at the core foundational unit to that, we are looking for a resonance that can actually attribute and cause a biological function to it stimulates the body of light in our body, right? And it then stimulates these biochemical processes that make our bodies run. But essentially, we're looking for high quality nutraceutical grade food supplements or food derivatives to put into that product. And that might sound like, well, everybody does that. Everybody has some sort of spin on, what they're putting into their product and why that makes them the best. Well, what if I told you we reject over 70% of the raw materials that are sent to us? And
so why do you reject them?
it's because of the front end testing that we're doing. So, you know, a lot of people look at the label and they say organic, and they're like, oh, organic, that's great stuff. You know, organic broccoli, right? Oh, that must be good stuff, right? That's organic broccoli. It must be good. But the reality of it is does the producer go the extra mile in doing orthogonal testing modalities or testing extra exogenous testing modalities to identify the purity and the potency of that organic broccoli?
Exogenous sounds very sexy, but so explain that a little bit more.
Right. So essentially what we're looking at is we go to a supplier and we need to understand that what they're selling to us actually is organic broccoli, right? Because when you work in the nutraceutical world, you get different derivatives in powder form, right? Nobody gets a whole block broccoli floret that is put in their capsule. It's essentially delivered to any supplier, any manufacturer as a, you know, powder derivative. And so you or I, we're not going to know. Nobody knows just from the powder. You see this green powder, you don't know what it is. And so what really matters is, you know, even though the supplier might have done the testing, the supplier might be able to say, this is what is in this product, or this is what this product is. You really need to make sure that the manufacturer is doing its due diligence to assess the quality of that raw material. And what is scary is the majority of raw material suppliers are not accurate in their testing, or they're not true to fully understanding, or they're not providing full clarity for what that raw material is. And so what happens a lot of times is the word adulteration is passed around in the industry a lot. And so what that means is, you know, you have this organic broccoli, but maybe it's mixed with the grasses that it was grown with as well. And so yes, it's organic broccoli, but maybe 15% of that is this grass derivative that you don't want anything to do with, that could have potential toxins, mold, pesticide derivatives, other kind of foreign elements, and could elicit a whole different biochemical response than what you're looking for on that end chain, right?
And so how do they go in and look at that?
So it kind of goes to our orthogonal testing modality, and it goes even beyond that. And so to assess the potency of a product or a raw material, it's going into understanding the different sort of the objective identifiers to the product. And so that might be microscopy, that might be liquid chromatography, that might be doing various assays, that might be a DNA, you know, basis of PCR, PCMR, where you're actually looking at the deoxyribose basis to understand that this actually is broccoli, right? You have to identify it from a DNA basis.
And as a witness, you got your scientific terms down pretty good, guy.
I hope so.
Yeah, totally.
Good education and years in the industry will give you, if anything. So, you know, but you can't just use one. You know, you can't just use one form of identifier to understand that or verify that that is what you're buying and that is what you're looking for. You have to assess it on a multitude of levels to understand what you're getting is really what you want to be getting. Because you could be getting broccoli. It could be broccoli all the way. But then you do a antioxidant assay to the broccoli and you realize, well, this is probably 2-year-old broccoli powder. And I don't want to put that in my product. I don't want an inferior product that doesn't have that nutrient component, live active nutrition to that product that is actually going to give me the therapeutic results and benefits or support that I'm needing, essentially.
And that's where Premier really stands, right, about their cell resonance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we view ourselves as as the foremost leader of cell resonant nutrition. And I think the beauty of that statement, most people, you know, there's a whole other component where, you know, you can say, well, what is cell resonance ring? How does that feel? How does that test? You know, you can go into kinesiologic modalities. But looking at a biochemical standpoint for cell resonance, it's saying this product is bioactively important to the body, and it's going to cause a bioactive change. And what that means is that the quality of the nutrition is enough to actually elicit a cellular response, cellular resonant. It resonates with the metabolic components, the biochemical components of the cell. And you need nutraceuticals that are of high enough quality to elicit that response. And that doesn't even get into the whole other side of that juxtaposition where we're referring to the body of light of the product that carries that unique frequency that attributes to that biochemical change.
And that I will just put in the plug, right? That's what Cellcore is really going towards, is that light body, correct?
Yeah, and Premier Research Labs pairs with that beautifully as well. I mean, I think it's when you have companies that are aware of that cellular resonant nutrition modality there, it brings into this complete picture where you're touching on the biochemical components and you're touching on this resonant frequency component, which drives all cellular reactions from the get-go. So essentially you're looking at, elevating the therapeutic modalities and the therapeutic applications to a product, which I think is quite revolutionary in that thinking.
So where would you say Premier really stands in the market today with their quality, et cetera?
Yeah, so we really view ourselves as the Rolls Royce of manufacturing, and that's a funny marketing term, but I think, when you really dive deep into that, what does that mean? And that means, we are spending so much time and so many resources just to verify, what we're putting in the product is of good enough, value to put into the product. And just like Rolls-Royce, they're going to do their due diligence in sourcing every single different material that goes into their product. And I think a lot of manufacturers, they just want to jump on the nutraceutical train. They want to say, we can offer this product. It has this composition to it. It has this ingredient to it, but they're not doing anything really in depth to verify that bioactivity to that and the identity of that. So it's really, when you look at any manufacturer, they at least should have a C of A for every product they do. They should at least do multiple testing modalities to verify every raw material in that product. And then they should have a claim to their manufacturing facilities to where they have third-party verifications to say this is what they're actually doing. Because if nobody else goes and looks at that manufacturing facility, I could have my own manufacturer and just be like, this is all that I do. And how are you going to verify that? And so that brings up to a point where we are one of the few companies in the world. There's only 6 companies from the last I checked that are USP certified manufacturers. And so what that means is we go above and beyond the CGMP requirements. And so that's good manufacturing practices of the industry. We go above and beyond those requirements. We actually go into pharmacopoeia standards in terms of manufacturing for dietary supplements. And so we have been audited multiple times by this third party. And essentially they say they do everything up to par that we look for. And so it's really a foothold on the industry. It's a flag in the ground saying this is who we are. And a lot of companies do get FDA audited. They do get maybe some third-party certifications from other industries, right? But we really believe USP is a proper identifier for the quality that you want in any sort of nutraceutical, any sort of supplemental item that's trying to elicit a therapeutic support modality in the body, essentially.
And your third-party testing is completely independent, correct?
Right. Yeah. And so we're not sliding money under that or anything like that. No, this is all, we actually invested our own time and money for somebody to come out and look at the grounds and say, audit our entire process from start to beginning and say, are they worth our stamp of approval? Because literally this third-party party, USP, has no interest. I mean, they have no interest in us unless we want them to come out and do the work for us and just have their stamp of approval, because they believe that this is how manufacturing should be done to ensure safety and to ensure quality and to make sure that you are getting a product that you can use. So
well, one thing that stood out for me, which really felt like I wouldn't expect this from many people, but I remember it during our seminar last year, was that you guys actually asked that third party to try and find something instead of just the standard 200 articles of X, Y, and Z. You guys are going far beyond that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we want somebody to say this, you're doing something wrong, or, this is not correct, because, just like any practitioner or any student, you need to make mistakes so that you can learn. And of course we've made mistakes. I mean, we've been in business for 25 plus years. But with that industry experience, it's understanding, what's right and what's wrong and how we can better ourselves. And so every company has its growing pains, but once you're at that point where you're ready to invite that third eye, so to speak, to evaluate your processes, if a company's not doing that, first and foremost, that's a red flag, because I don't think they're at that position where they're willing to grow. Essentially, they're not. They don't have confidence in themselves to say, this is what we're doing right. And so we invite that, and we welcome that anytime. I mean, most companies are like, dread a FDA audit, right? But we actually get excited because we have nothing to hide, and we realize we're of superior quality where they shouldn't find anything. And if we do, that's only more of a reason, for us to be, to grow, essentially.
Keep stepping up.
So yes, yeah. And I think that is incredibly important. So, and that brings to kind of a third point to Premier Research Labs and kind of why we were founded. And so most people don't realize, or might not know, that we were founded under Dr. Bob Marshall. He was as you would know, he is a clinician. He's,
God bless that spirit.
The soul, yes. And his mission, I don't know if you recall, but back in the 80s, there was a tryptophan incident. Yep. Where a bunch of people got very, very sick. A bunch of people actually died too. And that also goes back to, the company didn't do their due diligence and their quality standards. They didn't realize what they were doing could possibly cause a potential toxin to be produced in their manufacturing facility for that tryptophan. And so what happened is a lot of people got sick and some people died. And Dr. Marshall was one of those people who actually did take that product and did fall ill from that experience. And so through that settlement and through his realization that this whole industry was, and this was, granted, this was back in the 80s. And if you recall at all, people are still hearing about, adulteration, and you hear about GNC and you hear about these other companies and how they get audited by some other company. And basically the company's like, there's nothing you say on this label is in here. This is false advertising. You're just selling dust. And so I think it's very much so a point that consumers need to be awakened to the fact that they need to be educated in what they're taking, and they need to trust the source of that. And so Dr. Marshall's mission in founding Premier Research Labs from that whole experience was to make sure that you have the quality and the potency and can stand by that product. And so he was a biochemist by trade. He saw the benefits of nutraceuticals. He knew what cell resonance was before it even really became the catchy term you and I are sharing right now. And he wanted to spread that, and he saw that niche in the world that he could benefit the world by creating this company. And so we're founded in that mission, so that nothing like that which happened to Dr. Marshall could ever happen again, essentially.
And that's what I would call, and I guess we can pretty much call this a wrap now, so people aren't going, how much longer is this going to go on for? But the piece that, and plus there's so much more to learn here. So, we'll use you up here, Will, in many ways. But I love Dr. Marshall's little adage, which was, if he wasn't willing to take it or do, then he's not going to require that from anybody else. And to me, and he meant it. When years ago, when I first started, they were falling behind in production. I said, why don't you do some night shifts? He goes, one, night shifts really are terrible for the whole endocrine system, right? The whole sleep, your immune system. And plus, I wouldn't work it, so why would I have anyone else work it?
Yeah.
And that's when one, he was a magnificent presenter. I mean, he really stood up there. But that comment was, to me, the standard of Premier. And he really did set it. And I will say, for the people that I have met in my years at Premier, you guys are holding a standard that, for me, I still consider myself one, I'm a lousy secretary, I'm a good practitioner, but you guys are really setting a standard and really understanding on that, I'll just say science, the bioscience, et cetera, that really keeps Premier growing and manifesting. And you're staying on, and you guys are staying ahead of the crest.
Well, and this is the whole conversation, maybe another 5 minutes longer, but people need to realize too that with manufacturing and with nutraceuticals, a lot of manufacturers, to make the amount of products that they need to make, they cut corners and they make the production more efficient. And in that terminology, we raise the whole conversation of excipients and mag steroids and fillers to products, where essentially a manufacturer adds a substance that, if at minimal, provides no nutritive value, and at worst can potentially elicit poor responses in the body, right? And can potentially, cause negative consequences that could be felt for years. And I think people are just now starting to bring light to that. But I think if you look at a bottle of any product that you're taking and you can't pronounce it, you don't know what it does, and it looks like it just takes up space, why is it in the product, right? If you're not going to eat it yourself, if you're not going to go to the supermarket and buy magnesium stearate and put that in your body, why are you taking a product that contains that? And so when you look at Premier Research Labs, our goal is to not use any non-nutritive substances in our product. The beauty of our product is everything is synergistic into building to the health and wellness of the individual. And I think paired with the manufacturing principles, paired with the quality work that we're doing on the front end for all the raw material, just to get the raw material in-house before we even put it in the product. And then you pair it with the fact that we're not going to be diluting that with non-nutritive substances that could potentially do nothing, or at worst do something, right, that you don't want.
Totally.
It's revolutionary, but at the same time, when you think about it, why isn't everybody else doing that, right? And it comes down to profit margin. It comes down to people just wanting to make an extra buck, right?
Yep.
We make it hard on ourselves. We invite the audit. We invite the difficulty in manufacturing 1,000 bottles with no magnesium stearate, and we welcome that challenge because we believe in quality nutrition and how that can benefit the body. And that is such a beautiful and eloquent and just simple idea. And it's something that I feel passionate about. I think, as an account executive and a nutritionist and clinical nutritionist, I just don't see it it's an industry standard. And it's something that if you're not looking at this and using a product of this nature, I just don't understand how you could get the results you want. So, that's not a selling point then.
Well, it was a great selling point, because how many people have I seen over the years who are taking X, Y, and Z because they're feeling really lousy and they aren't getting the results?
Yeah.
And this is where Cellcore has really gotten into it, and it's about the result. It's not about the symptom. It's that aspect of what's underneath it, right? The symptom is just that outward expression of, oh, there's something not in this state of balance in the body,
right?
That expression. So I guess what we'll do, because we've been cranking time here, but next time, let's really talk about what's synergistic. What does that really mean? And what's that compatibility all about? And we'll just expand from there. So, Mr. Will Marsh of Premier Research Laboratories, I thank you for your time and your knowledge, and all those ding, ding, dings, or all those other practitioners trying to get in and make orders. So again, thank you for taking your time for this busy day, and huge hugs from Massachusetts out there to Texas. And we love you, man. Take care. And again, thank you muchly.